Again, thank you all very much for joining us. This is your voice in the community, thought that get results. With regard to your participation in the show, we encourage you to call in the numbers listed 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. Here's a suggestion. You have a question or a comment, perhaps you can get a pencil, piece of paper, write it down so that you're well organized, and when you're getting on the show, you take as little time as possible so that we can accommodate as many of you as we can. We ask only, first of all, you respect yourself and then respect others, because we will not accept anything we deem that's not within our broadcast standards. But we encourage you always to be forceful with your point. You can also follow us on this program via our YouTube channel at Vaughan Radio and our Facebook channel at Vaughan Radio for the video streaming of this program. Thank you all again. Tonight, Conrad Naya-Liebert, good evening.
Good evening, Webbo, and once again, good evening to your hard-working staff here at Vaughan Radio. Once again, we're here to discuss issues affecting the people, both locally, regionally, and internationally. Of course, Webbo, it's always a pleasure for me to come and have this conversation. And recently, of course, this conversation has been so massive because of course, our current political circumstance, I suppose, and there's a lot of reverberation on the road, and it's an environment where I suppose the people of this little island are somehow in the midst of a circumstance which doesn't seem to be a good one in terms of the rhetoric, in terms of established moralities, in terms of the respect that we show to each other. I think that the rhetoric have gotten a bit extreme and personalized, and it's all happening through the avenues of politics, Webbo. It's almost a sad situation to me because, of course, we know here in Nevis we've been having, and we continue to have, a crude political history, of people that never seems to be very happy politically. And I hope, Webbo, going forward, that we can realize that we must understand that we are all talking and thinking and wanting the same thing for Nevis. And even though the avenue of politics sometimes very thorny and so forth, we should always still have that respect for each other, knowing that we're fighting the same war to improve Nevis, to make Nevis, and I hate when out of all this discussion, out of all these sometimes good conversation, enemies surface. I don't think political enemies amongst ourselves in this little island is a healthy thing, Webbo. And so tonight, I suppose we can speak a bit towards that and other issues that's affecting the people here on Nevis, Webbo.
Well, why don't you go ahead speaking towards that, because I'm listening and I'm wondering if you're speaking about something in particular, because the comments that you make, as far as I know, have been ongoing for time immemorial. People have always been talking politics. People have always been different sides of issues, etc., etc., etc. So if that is what you're referring to, well, I don't know. But I was just wondering if you're talking about something specific.
I wouldn't say that, Webbo, but I believe, and of course I am probably a little younger than you are, and but I believe that the conversation have kind of deteriorated as it relates to respect for each other, Webbo. I know there are other forces that act on the minds of Nevis people and on the minds of Nevis politicians, but what I'm saying is that we need to, beyond the political exchange, remember that we are Nevisians, and we can at any time find that it's necessary to call upon each other, even in the realms of politics, to carve out what is best for Nevis. I think a degree of unity still can exist between both parties here in Nevis, but with the present rhetoric and so forth, it makes it extremely difficult for it to happen. Because what I see coming out of this is enemy, political enemy, and it seems to go on even beyond that. People are personalized things, and other that Webbo, we deal with the harsh reality of discrimination. An island which is functioning partly and not on all its cylinders, and I believe Webbo, that is a destructive thing for Nevis. It's a little island, and I can see where unity in Nevis amongst the political party would be a serious plus when it becomes necessary.
We got a set of earthquakes that have been happening around here of late.
Oh, yeah.
And we got some big ones in Syria and Turkey, and we end up with some damages from that.
We end up in some damages from
Syria and Turkey. You heard about
yes,
it?
of course.
Yeah. So I was asking
extremely devastating. I'm sure anyone who have been tuning or made aware of what is going on in Turkey and Syria would realize that the forces of nature can eliminate us all. In 1 second, it looks like, Webbo, and it makes me even think deeper about my little island, because the last time the gentleman for the disaster and preparedness was here, he was talking about earthquakes and possibility of volcanic eruption, and he made it clear that there is no safe zone in Nevis. It is very easy to realize that there is no safe zone in Nevis because the mountain is spot in the middle of the island. It stands over 3,000 feet above us, and there's absolutely no safe zone if things start happening with the mountain. We cannot rest too comfortable that these things cannot become part of our existence and our reality, because I think the islands are volcanic islands, and if we look back, I personally knows of no record of Nevis Mountain being showing signs of eruption and so forth. But I think we cannot fall asleep with that at all. We cannot fall asleep with the realities of tsunami, volcanic eruption, and earthquake. And I believe these are things we should in some way prepare for, or if not, I do understand that a lot of money is around sometimes here from the passport sale. If not, maybe you should have a reserve for when these things happen. We can count on that reserve to make things move faster, because I mean, where we are down here, I'm not sure how how fast international reaction would be if such things does happen to Nevis. But I think Nevis in particular, and Nevis should not fall asleep about the realities of these kind of occurrences. I know we are steadfast going forward about the geothermal industry, and that is of course something that a lot of people may have considered. Maybe the island is a little small for that. Other people have the different arguments, but it looks to me like the scientific analysis have pointed towards that there is no major complication to expect if we do have the geothermal happening here in Nevis. But I am of great concern, Webbo, and I'm kind of a God-fearing person, and that's why I hope in our everyday doings and our sayings that judgment doesn't come upon us in such a way that that we have to deal with serious regret because of the loss of life and loss of what we own here on this little island, because anything can happen, Webbo. As Bob Marley said, bless my eyes this morning, the sun is on the rise once again, but the way earthly things are going, anything can happen. And that's the way I feel here sometimes on Nevis, because I think we're misbehaving a little bit, Webbo. I think we certainly are misbehaving, and I think at times we're taking the laws of nature for granted. I believe, honestly, as a God-fearing person, the better that you do and the better you strive to do, is the better your realities would be. And I suppose that we got to do better and be aware of the possibilities that nature can unfold onto us.
Edric W. Stanley, good evening.
Good evening, Webbo. I shouldn't even say good evening because it is a terrible evening for me. Being late here, with the magnitude of my lateness, it's based on the love for children and sometimes the abuse they thrust upon you, upon some of the parents. I'll say no more at this juncture about that. I am mad like hell, but I will take some more. Good evening, Webbo, and good evening to the radio listeners far and wide. Those who listen to us on the World Wide Web, throughout the Caribbean Basin, those of us who live on St. Kitts and Nevis, more particularly Nevis, I said, welcome to our broadcast. Webbo.
Okay, so what we got? You got anything you want to put on the table before so let's go ahead.
Well, I listened to a broadcast, my main source of information. Well, one of my main sources of information is on radio. And I felt what I heard in that news clip regarding the disorganization, should I label it that? Anyhow, based on what's happening to the other party, seemingly, my horse came home.
Okay, see what happens, Mr. Stanley. I don't know why the tentative, Naya came, he made some opening comments that things, the rhetoric on the street, so and so be the case, and so on, right? Seemingly as if he doesn't want to say, well, what the rhetoric on the street is. Now, you're making a comment, well, it's seemingly the other party and so on. We have about 3 or 4 parties here in Nevis. We have a set of parties in St. Kitts and so on and so forth, right? What do you want me to do? You want me to ask you what are you talking about, or you're making a point?
Usually
so that
I
walk
draw
with
a
me.
wide circle
Walk with me.
and
Okay, go ahead, keep talking.
based on what I heard from one of my main sources of information, is that the NRP has taken a political position simply because I think they didn't follow protocol, let me use, for the want of a better word, based on seniority, in my view, in the party. And consequently, we have had some comments between the head of the party and the senior elected official in the St. Thomas's parish. At this juncture, based on what I understood, is that the word used somewhat, she is sidelined in the party, and I do not know if she has plans afoot to establish herself as another party leader or to cross the floor. If one of those choices, which are hard choices, but they must be made, one must understand that in politics, strange things happen, and in this regard, it is very likely that the easier route is for her to cross the floor. Since there is no room in the NRP for Cleon Simmons as the senior politician, senior elected representative, then the Honorable Dr. Brantley should seek accommodation for her and bring her to his side. As a result, she would have now 5 years hence to cultivate her own area so as to continue to be re-elected. I'm not 100% certain as to what her decision would be, but it seems as though she's between a rock and a hard place, having sidelined by her party based on the information I got. And as a result, she has to make this critical decision as to stand alone, try and re-establish a new NRP in that area, that district, or again talk to the Honorable Dr. Brantley and find a home with the CCM, which is a much better organized party, and they've got a full program to be rolled out, and there is space and accommodation for her in the CCM party. Webbo.
Yeah, hearing of that episode, it was quite interesting. I think it's even ongoing. From my point of view, I think the young lady have committed political suicide. I personally just cannot understand it. Why an individual like her, in her position, a good position, in a political party, have decided to find herself between a rock and a hard place. It is very deep, because I feel like when one think of the job one is asked to do, to be an elected representative, I think the people's come first, and to make sure the people are happy, the people that support you are happy with the organization which you are a part of, which you claim to be a part of, which you ask them to support and to form the government. These people have given you their trust to a great extent, and it looks to me like that trust has been not fully appreciated, and the comfort of those people probably has been disregarded. Whatever she does, to me, it's going to be a difficult way going forward. For her in particular, I am not a part of the CCM, and neither am a part of the NRP. But I feel like what has happened recently probably should have happened 2 weeks ago. The quicker they suspend her would have been, the better. I find a new NRP, as you suggest, is a distant thunder. joining the CCM, I can't say much about that, because what we will see will be a person who have acted in a manner that probably would not ever be forgiven. I mean, that's the harsh reality of politics. These things are deeply serious, and the way we deal with these matters here is not the way they are dealt with in other places. These matters are very serious, and I believe what have happened should have happened before, in terms of she being suspended, and because I don't think she would be a good player going forward, a player with confidence, a player that you expect would be a team player going forward for the NRP. Maybe she finds that with the CCM. Maybe if she's strong enough or good enough to come with an offspring of the NRP, maybe she can find that. But I don't think there will be that confidence in her from the administrative aspect of the NRP going forward to probably to use her again as a candidate in the St. Thomas's district. And so I look at it as political suicide, and I say tentatively because really and truly in politics, as you just said, strange things happen, but it is my view at this point, looking at the options and the variables, it is quite a sad situation for her, personally.
Well, I'll tell you, you said that it is political suicide. I can't make that judgment call at this juncture, simply because she has won her seat independent of, more or less, the NRP, so to speak.
No, Mr. Stanley, no.
Well, it's an NRP seat. At the same time, she has been on the campaign trail, and she has won an election on her own, so to speak. At the same time, you have to give her credit for having won an election on her own. At this particular point in time, we must begin to look at the dynamics. She outpaced the CCM candidate by 200 votes approximately, thereabout. At the same time, if she comes aboard the CCM, she might be able to pick up all those votes from the candidate who was her opponent in the last election, plus enough to carry her over as a CCM candidate. So I'm not writing her off, because there are many dynamics in the equation, in the calculus, and as a result, it is very likely that she might be able to do the math. It's going to take some hard work, but it is likely that she could be victorious as a crossover, crossing the floor, and become a CCM representative in that district. We do not know. We don't hold all the cards. At the same time, we do not know what is in the future. But she's a capable, bright young lady, and she's articulate enough to hold her own on the campaign trail. She's a lawyer, and I'm telling you, it's not easy just to vanquish somebody simply because they didn't do what the party expects her to do. Carte blanche, fully follow. She was supposed to have, based on what I heard, signed a document for the Attorney General to understand that she supports the Dr. Hodge Daniel, and as a result, she didn't, but I understood from my source that she was willing to support her as the opposition leader in the House of Assembly. At the same time, because she didn't sign the letter giving the Attorney General the opportunity to appoint Dr. Hodge, Janice Hodge Daniel, Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge, they have decided to, in fact, part company. So, at the same time, it is very likely that she understands the dynamics and she's playing her cards close to her chest. I would tell you, it's not that difficult for her in the next 5 years to do the hard work that is necessary, convince your people, those people who have voted for her in the past, that she was there at the very beginning, and based on the rancor that went on, alleged rancor that went on, she has been sidelined in many ways, allegedly, and as a result, the rancor got to this crescendo, and therefore the party officials voted to sideline her. Now, she's a thinking person. She has a certain amount of intelligence, intellectual intelligence. And based on that, I am saying it is very likely that space could be made available in the CCM administration for her to come over. And she's got 5 years to do the groundwork, lay the groundwork, and to be able to be successful in that constituency as a candidate in the next 5 years.
Sometimes, Stanley, we speak to truth, and sometimes we tend to understand the dynamics of politics. Politics are local, dynamics of politics here in Nevis. We know the Conground seat, the St. Thomas's seat, is a NRP stronghold. And we also know St. George's is a CCM stronghold. And we also know that it's going to be extremely difficult for that to change. I am not saying it cannot be changed, but when change comes on the basis of the recent occurrences, it is the kind of change that really repudiate the one who have seemingly brought about the confusion. Okay? I am not in any way underestimating the young lady's ableness. I know she's an intelligent person, and possibly her willingness. But she's been given a safe seat. And I would like to correct you here that she didn't win on her own.
Well,
She did not win on her own. People vote for NRP. And she was the representative. Yes, her personality probably play a role, but quite a minute role in a sense. Okay, we also know that almost anybody, and I won't say anybody, but almost anybody who run in that constituency for NRP will do good. It's tipped to win. Same way, if anybody who the CCM works in the St. George's area, it's tipped to win. And so it doesn't make no sense we start talking out of our mind that we don't understand the dynamics of politics in Nevis. Okay, because the truth is, if this had happened within the other political party, the CCM, I would have feel the same. I would not have understand why we cannot work together. I would not have understand why that individual won't yield. And to use the word yield, that means there was some resistance. There shouldn't be such resistance. There shouldn't be such resistance. We got to work together. And those who probably seek to comfort her, those who seek to obviously advance more disruption, probably in the NRP party. But in any political party, and these things will happen, I would have called that individual out. And I would have said, I am so disappointed. Because it looks like them think about the people who have asked them to represent them and to give them their trust. The people. The people. What are you on about? Yourself? The NRP is an established political party for many years, much older than the CCM. The CCM have been the favorite for Nevisians from since their inception, almost all the way. But I think the NRP is a well-established political party.
quite so.
And to see this happening in the midst of it, it's quite it's a great disappointment, and it's a great drawback for the party that have made some strive recently. It is a situation which is totally not acceptable from the electorate point of view. You see, the same thing happened in St. Kitts with all this unity breakup and the debacle. What happened? It looked like nobody thinking about the people who have overwhelmingly give them their trust, give them their heart, give them everything. People give everything sometimes, They are faced with circumstances whereby they have elected a political party. They hope the political party is going to deliver. Some people expect the political party is going to deliver personally to them. Some people wish that they can deliver to the country as a whole, because when the country is doing good, we think what the individuals are doing good as well. So when people decide to do things, break up this and break up that, you must remember the trust the people have placed in you. People are politics, politics are people, the trust the people have placed in you. And so, with all the intelligence the young lady have, and of course we always talk about Nevis, and we have a high literacy rate and all that kind of stuff. I believe she have erred, and the consequence would not be one that accumulates any positive for her going forward. I am so reluctant to sound this way, but it looks like that's the reality. And I must congratulate the organization to come to that conclusion, because this thing must not be encouraged in no sphere, in no atmosphere. You see, Nevis has suffered from a lot of them kind of things, I mean, you simply say cross the floor. Okay, we had people in the history who have crossed the floor, who have took Nevis votes took Nevision's votes, pose as PAM, and when they go to Sinkis, they cross over to Labour. Mr. Paris did that. Okay? Nevis people have been let down so much politically that when these things happen, it's really something that you don't take lightly at all. You don't take lightly, because this. Now, I do hope, I must say this, with all respect due, that her actions is not reflective as the actions of female or the female. People say, oh, woman is just confusion, that's what happened. I don't buy that story. I hope her action doesn't reflect on Nevisians, because people are always saying Nevisians can't work together. Politically, we pull and push, and what happened consequently sink his control and hurt us constantly and continue to hurt us. I hope it's not reflective of Nevisians. Because Nevisians are decent people. I do hope, and I dare to say that we are decent people. And the ableness and willingness to cooperate is the essence. It's the essence of success when people decide to work together. Okay? And I am speaking this way, not because it's unhappy, because this thing could have been happening within another political party. And I feel the same. I say, what? I can't believe this. But others are encouraging it, and with a hope to get some gains. And at the end of the day, it just makes all of us look bad. All of us look bad. You're working with an organization, mate, where the rules doesn't cover majority rules, respect, honor. Why it's so difficult for people to work together? I see, and I said before, a suicidal act by the young lady, and a suicidal political act, a politically suicidal act, and I just can't see no other reality going forward. I think she had everything in her hand. She had the leadership of that party in her hand. She's a young person comparing to the others. So I believe that she have erred. She have erred to a great extent. And I know that strange things happen in politics. But Nevis people is a people, when they mark you, okay? Very seriously. And that is an act that would be marked profoundly. And it probably would be a part of the political history of Nevis, definitely the political history of NRP.
Well, let me say, Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge is a capable person. And in that regard, I do not know what transpired over the past months between the two, but at the same time, seemingly, the idea of her being the only elected, the idea being that some accommodation should be made for Mrs. Simmons with regard to the hierarchy of the party. I do not know what the internal wranglings have been. At the same time, based on what is now in the public domain, I understood that she refused to sign the letter, but yet she said that she is supporting Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge for opposition leader. But you see where this is going. Once you are the opposition leader in Parliament, it is usually assumed that if the tide turns if the tide turns, hopefully in the next 10 years, the case might be, Dr. Janice Hodge would become the premier, and based on that, Mrs. Simmons was looking at it. I cannot relinquish everything to Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge. So what is left for me? At the same time, we cannot approach the task in a selfish way. But at the same time, you have to understand the dynamics with reference to the opposition leader and the opposition in Parliament, and ultimately the leadership when it comes to the running of Nevis. There are two salient positions, two powerful positions, and seemingly Mrs. Simmons, being the senior in the party at that juncture when the party was reorganized, some accommodation should have been made available. Seemingly, it was not made available, and consequently, the rancor continued to this day. Thus, they relinquish the line to her, the party line to her. So she somewhat is in never never land. At the same time, it is very possible, like I've said, that based on the votes that she got in the last election, she will not get that kind of support in that constituency from the NRP in the future. But at the same time, you look at the dynamics with reference to the lady who ran against her. She actually garnered some 500 votes. All she needs to get from the NRP is 200 plus 500, and she got the seat, which would be rather a diluted NRP support for her, roughly 500. But if she could only pick up 200, and the lady who ran as her opponent in the last election, if the CCM retires her and attempt to reach out, bring her into the party, put some work on her, she put some work on herself to, in fact, convince people, I am here for you, and I am in a government now, I could do a lot for you. I couldn't do anything for you in opposition, but now I am in government. I can do a lot for my constituents, and as a result, I need your support. All I need is just 250 of you. Support me. And you felt by your statement that she has committed political suicide. The baby has been thrown out, but not with the bathwater. It is very likely that what she's seeing is what I'm seeing. There is accommodation. I do not know if it would be made, but the Honorable Dr. Brantley is no fool. And he's watching this game at a higher level than we are. And he has already, I shouldn't really put that, probably, he has already put numbers together and recognized that this candidate must be salvaged, and she must not be allowed to go into the wilderness, because she's got plenty to offer as a lawyer, as a young person, as a female. And I believe that accommodation should have been made for them to navigate in those boisterous waters to ensure that she is kept aboard. Because you just can't come in like a bulldozer and bulldoze your way straight through. There are compromises. And I'm saying to you, simply because Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge is party leader, doesn't mean that the positions could not be shared. This lady saw where she's being vanquished and abandoned, but she has to stand her ground at certain point in time and say, look, I have given some ground, but I will not be pushed anymore, allegedly. So the end game is at the next election, when the polls are in and the numbers are counted. Because once you taste power, you're not going to just give up power so easily. And therefore, Dr. Janice Hodge, who is quite a bright lady, should have found some common ground to accommodate her and to allow her to stay within the party, strengthen the party. Because if the inevitable happens and she crosses the floor, the NRP would have digressed. So when they go back to the drawing board and recognize that they have only one seat, and based on the numbers I just gave you, she just needs roughly 250 if the CCM retires the candidate they had in the last election, and gain Ms. Simmons gets the 500 plus 250, she's back in the game. She's not out of the game. And like I said, she would be in a government, a functioning government, a government that has done quite a lot for the Nevis public. And as a result, not only for the Nevis, but also for Think It's Nevis. And those dynamics, you just cannot sow them to the wind. Those are numbers which must be calculated, anticipated and calculated. And as a result, it is very likely that she could be successful in 5 years, doing the hard work to convince those who are on the sidelines, who see youth, intelligence, experience at play, and give her the nod and bring her home to the CCM camp. Now, I hope you see what I'm trying to bring to the fore.
I see what you're trying to bring to the fore.
When I said my horse will come in, those are the things I saw. Why I said my horse will come in.
Well,
Come home.
that's your horse, Mr. Stanley. But what I'm saying that the St. Thomas's, that constituency have spent the better part of 30 years in the opposition.
More than 30 years. More than 30
The
years.
storyline has been the same all the time. Here am I'm in government, vote for me. But they never do. They never buy that storyline.
It's not only,
They never bought
By
that
words.
storyline.
it must be backed up.
Well, it must
Exactly.
be backed up, yes, but I mean, we can think hypothetically,
Well, no, that's how we are thinking.
and but to me, the reality is striking that the constituency of St. Thomas's will not become a CCM constituency very easily. And so the constituency of St. George's would not become an NRP constituency very easily.
It's a game of
And to
numbers.
me, that reality is very striking.
It's a game of numbers.
It's a game of numbers, yes.
You leave,
We know that for a
you
long time
leave
now.
two-thirds for the NRP candidate, and you take one-third and you put it with the other, roughly two-thirds, and you got the numbers. It's a game of numbers.
What do you think this episode have done to the supporters of NRP in the St. Thomas's area? I think this crisis have made them even more resolute.
That's what you
Okay.
think.
Yeah, that's what I think. It's just what I think. I believe they have this have caused such an upset. I honestly don't feel the young lady on her own or with another party would come close to any victory at the polls. I mean, it's my
It's
opinion.
based on
and,
how
and it's based on and
how the
it's
leadership
time and everything else, but that's what I
structure it.
feel right now. That's what I feel right now.
you already got roughly 500 votes in the bag. Those that belongs to CCM.
Mr. Stanley doesn't work that way.
We
And
will
I
see.
kind of expect better of you too, in a sense that it's. I mean, that 500 vote in the bag she already have. You say it's for CCM.
Right. All
Well,
you need to
actually,
do,
it can be.
tactically,
It
all you
can
need to
be.
do is retire her
It can be.
and bring in the candidate who showed she's got a winning combination. The numbers would be lopsided, like I tell you. But at the same time, what would happen when the CCM candidate is retired and you bring in somebody who has proven in that district that they have won and could win again? I will only be repeating myself with the numbers. If we go back to the sheet, there were maybe 1,300 votes coming out of the St. Thomas district. And all you need is 200 of those NRP plus the 500 of the CCM.
You know what I believe, Mr. Stanley? I believe in the St. Thomas's area, the CCM would do better if they continue with the candidate they run the last time.
Against who? You do not know who the NRP
Against whatever candidate.
You do not know
NRP.
who the
I believe if they
Who the NRP
if
gonna
they
bring up?
try to exchange Mrs. Simmons with the present candidate they had, it would not yield the benefit that they are expecting. I don't think so, personally.
Well, you don't think so?
I don't think so.
I don't think the way you think. And therefore, I'm saying to you, the numbers are there.
When one has exhibited a tendency of untrustworthiness, it goes a long way.
Look, the untrustworthiness is a fallacy. I am saying to you, Mrs. Simmons would be now a functioning minister. A functioning minister in the CCM administration, given assignments, productive assignments, where she can deliver for her constituency tangible things, road construction, and you name it. And the Honorable Dr. Mark Brantley, he's no fool. And as a result, he is going to, well, I don't know if he listens to our show, but if he listens, I hope he'll take just a little bit of advice in that regard. Don't allow that candidate to stay out there in the cold and abandoned. 2, wither. That's a candidate that has intelligence as a lawyer. It's a candidate that has youth. That's a candidate that has electability. And that a candidate has a tremendous amount of potential.
So that's the advice you want the Premier to take from you.
Hopefully.
I'll be back after these.
With all the power from the tower, this is the powerhouse of the Eastern Caribbean, VON Radio, from the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis.
Builder's Paradise is offering a large variety of floor and wall tiles at very competitive prices. Builder's Paradise has over 2 million pieces in stock, lots of different styles to choose from. Whether you're renovating or tiling a new house, Builder's Paradise has what you need. Wow! Oh, and remember, we're open all day Saturday to serve you better. This is something that you can't refuse. Visit Builder's Paradise today at the C.A. Paul Southwell Industrial Site in St. Kitts or call them at 466-4938.
Back on this episode of Court That Get Results with Edric W. Stanley and his advice for Premier Brantley, Conrad Naya Liebert. Gentlemen, if you have exhausted that area, I perhaps would like to just mention that one of the concerning things, not in just St. Kitts and Nevis for 2023, but also some of the other islands, the British Virgin Islands and some of the Windward Islands, they're having some issues with crime and criminality, murders and stuff like that. We continue to not be able to get a hold of these. I think in the last few years the numbers for St. Kitts and Nevis went down, but it is early yet in the new year, but it's troubling.
Well, I have spoken with a few people who don't agree at all with the peace program. And I could remember that the late Honorable Vance Armory as Premier held a meeting at Four Seasons. And I was invited. And I told at that meeting, said at that meeting, those who need a leg up should be given a leg up. Meaning, if we can give them a little house, a little piece of land, let's bring them into the fold and make them productive. Now, the peace program has gone way further than that little recommendation that I made at that meeting. And this was maybe 32 years ago. At the same time, the peace program is working. Tweak it a little, see what could be done in a positive way, and strengthen it. But it is working. I got information from the top that it is working, and you can't abandon it. But there are people in our society who feels that the peace program is not working, even though the numbers are there to support and to indicate that it is working and it can continue to work. It's just that some people decide that they're going to take what they've been given and still go out and do their badness. But eventually, if you are able to understand the dynamics, you might be able to tweak it a little more, try and bring those people who are outside the fold, so to speak. They're getting, but yet they may not be getting enough. Find out what the problem is. But the peace program has worked, and it can continue to work depending on the approach of those people in the decision making or part of the decision making process. I listened to the Honorable Sean Richards regarding a little admonition to the Labour government, and he's saying, we put this in place, it worked, but seemingly it is beginning to unravel, seemingly, and they should not allow it to unravel and get hold of a solution before it unravels. And he's correct, because the adverse publicity on world market is quite impactful and troubling. So if we have reduced the number of murders, we are able to collect dividends simply because the numbers don't lie.
We all were very happy when we realized that there was a reduction in crime. But Webbo have pointed out that this is something that's happening across the region. I'm not sure if any other place other than St. Kitts Nevis have had a peace program. But this is something on the rise across the region again. I'm, for one, never really understand the idea of paying people not to commit crime. It sounds very harsh, but of course I think that is in effect what is happening. The truth is, that doesn't really solve much. It's almost like they're postponing crime. The government changed, and there was probably a reshuffling of the program or whatever, and threats were made. Threats were made by the bad boys them, that if certain things not happening in terms of money coming through, things gonna start again. That means we haven't really arrived at a solution in nowhere at all. We are patching the road as we go by. Once there's money involved, to me that seems to even add more to the criminality, because the minute it become absent, and the minute, once that realize that people is getting more than us and these kind of things, it's still kind of stir up that type of animosity. There cannot be a solution in paying people to not commit crime. And you say you had proposed house and land?
Not a big house, a little wooden
A small house.
structure.
And so they said they want a bigger one.
Well, listen, you look at the barometer and you'll see the measurement as to the reduction in crime.
It's such a failure in government. It's such
Alright.
an admitted failure in government that their crime unit, their criminal process is not up to scratch. Something are not functioning the way it should. And we have resorted into paying the criminals for not committing crime, for not committing crime. What is that?
That statement is true though. That is what the deal was all about.
Well,
Yes, sir. Well,
from
what I know.
my perspective, I do not know, and I don't have all the answers.
Well, you seem to be implying that that is what the program was for. It was not stated for that. That is what it was for, to pay this, the so-called criminals not to commit crime. I don't know that it was stated that way. If you're making a conclusion, or one is making a conclusion that that is what it is, where is the evidence that will convince me or somebody that that is so?
Well, I don't know, but I know. One time I find myself at Gingerland Market, and a certain vehicle come up and pay some guys there on the block. That was surprising to me, and I didn't want it to see anymore. I just felt like, wow, that is evidential to me.
Okay, so you made a certain conclusion from that action.
Not just
That's
that
what you're
action. We've been discussing it here all the time.
Right, so when you saw that action or activity, it made you
Conclude.
conclude what?
It made me conclude that they're doing something that don't make no sense.
So then, if I don't know, so if you see me pull up and
It's not really,
give somebody some monies, and you had heard something before, you conclude, well,
here is it in action.
oh really?
Yeah, here is it in action.
Well, when
The
one
gangsters are
house,
there and they receive the money on Friday afternoon.
But what I'm saying is, the government during the program said that the at-risk youths, who you may be referring to as criminal, but it may not necessarily be that. But let's say what they say, the at-risk youth,
Yeah.
who feel deprived, underprivileged, for whatever reason, and so they put a program in place, and it includes, but it was not limited to, it includes giving them
a stipend.
a stipend, well, if you say paying them whatever it means. But I don't know where it says, if it does at all, you take this money and do not commit any crime. What the program says, and if it does otherwise, or the evidence shows otherwise, that's what I'm asking somebody to show. It says, go ahead, and you were short because you wanted to do this investment and you didn't have the money, so here is some money to help you. The government has programs like that all the time. There are lots of programs for women who want to start a business and feel they were behind. So let's say, here's some seed monies. So you go ahead and you do that. Now, some people argue that instead of starting the business, some probably went shopping
Yeah.
for a new wardrobe or whatever. But you have these sort of things in anything. But to conclude that this is the intention of the particular program. I don't know whether or not that is fair.
When somebody's house is burning, wet yours. And as you mentioned, regionally, there is a spike in criminal activity, and consequently, we have to do what we have to do in order to curtail the commission of certain types of criminal activity. It may not be a blanket solution, and it may not cover all situations, but at the same time, based on what I understood, and the numbers were told to me, it is working. So whether you are correct, Nayak came up with a conclusion, and he is assuming that that is exactly how the program was supposed to work.
You mean no?
Well, you said it. You said you saw,
Yeah, yeah.
and you concluded.
I'm not assuming that's how the program is supposed to work, right? It's a means to an end, yeah. And I know there are some who are aided to start business and so forth, but there are some, and I'm going to say this, and honestly, I don't want to go on too much on this because sometimes you pose a risk. You know, saying what you're saying sometimes, you know. I know, and the threats that was received was based on the fact that if there's a delay or if this money is not forthcoming, such things gonna start happening again. That was said, and it was heard by all government officials, and we start seeing some signs, you know. Sometimes it's an indirect approach, and that probably is the better approach, but not in every case. And you know how it is sometimes through the political avenue here. I think things went wild and probably out of hand in the last federal election, because people was receiving money left, right, and center, you know, and it was termed peace, you know. This was the peace program, you know, when money was paying for people left, right, and center. So I believe there can be an effective program, and you can call it what you want, peace or whatever. I believe there can be an effective program, and you can.
How would you design it?
Well, we have program like the STEP and the PEP. I don't see where there must be something called a peace program, because if you got such programs, it's mean incorporating youth, making them feel a part of an equation, and so forth. I mean, this peace thing, to me, speaks for itself. It speaks for, well, I'm to the STEP and
that's just a label. You could have used,
it's just a label.
you could have used.
I don't think it's just a label, you know.
Well, I'm saying to you,
I
you
don't
could have
think it's
used
just a
another
label.
term. Assistance.
That's the term they use because they are attempting to impact and promote peace by the program. And in many cases, it simply dealt with the passing of money. The passing of money with probably no arrangement or forecast into business venture or business opportunity. That was happening. It was happening.
Well,
And I suppose that there are well-organized and structured programs where many people who probably have felt outside the equation got involved and did well for themselves and continue to do well for themselves. But I know, stemming from the last federal election, it was a wanton giving away, and it was coming through the concept of the peace program.
well, you have concluded that it was a wanton giveaway, and based on what your conclusion is, you have attached the peace program to the activity.
To mischief, yeah.
At the same time, it's not a bad idea because the numbers speak for the success of the program. The reduction in murders, certain types of criminal activities.
And suppose we see a great upsurge now, what do you say? We will realize then simply that the problem was not solved, the underlying issues was not solved.
Well, the reason why the Honorable Sean Richards has now come to the fore with a statement is because there is a new administration governing the country of St. Kitts Nevis, and as a result, they were over here Saturday attempting to maybe tweak the program a little better in their judgment with the hope that they could reach certain people. I do not know exactly how and ultimately if they have had any success with regard to their trip over here on Saturday. But the longest journey begins with the first step, and we are many steps along that road to the success that the program has had so far. There seemingly, as the Honorable Sean Richards has stated, that the Labour government may attempting to change the dynamics a little, and as a result, things seemingly are getting out of hand. So they got to go back to the drawing board, and this is not a Labour problem, not a unity problem, not a PAM problem. It's a national problem, and therefore all hands should be on deck. All ideas should be participating, contributing, ultimately to solve that menace. At the same time, we cannot throw our hands in the air and abandon the program simply because of your concept of what it is as compared to my concept as to what it is. Like I said in the past, I made suggestions along that line, but the unity construct went further and they did what they did. And the program, again, has had a tremendous amount of success. Where we missed the mark is probably the change of administration and change of ideas. And as a result, things seemingly are getting back to, well, I can't say back to where they were originally. Shouldn't happen. We have to do all in our power to ensure that that peace program works. There would be some obvious floods that need to be brought into the equation. They have to figure out how to bring those people who think they can take and still go out and do their badness. Because we are human beings, we have the capacity to learn, we have the capacity to emulate, and if we learn and emulate, it is likely that some change with those few who are still out there doing badness can change.
Yeah, people can change, Mr. Stanley, and I am one who believe people can change. I'm one who believe in investing into the youths. I'm one who believe in really looking at those who are probably not academically inclined and incorporate them into positive maybe skills training and so forth. I'm one who believe in making everyone feel a part of the equation. Isn't that the problem, really? Where others just probably won't approach any institution again because they probably had a criminal record before. And I'm just reading into the newspaper the last Federal House of Assembly. I think Dr. Drew really emphasized the fact that cannabis conviction must be erased because a lot of youths in the Federation were not able to get on to any progressive program, ways and means, because of the criminal record, and I have employed people who came straight out of prison. They come out of prison Friday and they're with me on Monday, and I can testify that on 2 occasions none of them have find themselves back in prison, find themselves back in the light of crime. Yeah, because I come across them and invite them to my shop and get them into work, and at the same time I talk to them, tell them, look, this going to jail thing, no, you won't go back. And both have left me now
with a skill.
And not only that, I suppose, with that thing in their mind that that place is not for us. We are better functioning now. They can go to one of the welding shops and say, look, I can burn some rads. What do you have to do?
It's easy.
And so to me, it looks like an acceptance. It's reaching out sometimes. It's reaching out to people, yeah, and make them realize that they have some kind of potential. And it's frustration because one of them has said, look, man, anytime you get frustrated, just come and check me. And he always remember that. Okay? And these guys are out there now. One of them just had a new baby and they're getting along fine.
Well,
I am not saying
they have learned.
Everything is perfect in a sense, but it's about people like you, Mr. Stanley, people like us. And some of them who feel like they are more than the everyday man too. They got to reach out to these people at times, because these people are afraid to reach out to them because they got this thing in them. Look, if I go, they will just look at me and say, no help, because of my demeanor, maybe because I cannot represent myself properly, I cannot speak properly, you got to reach out to them. And really and truly, there's a lot of money around, it looks like, and everybody employ this money thing to try to achieve an end. But sometimes it leads to more confusion. And this upsurge we see now is because maybe too much emphasis was placed on money and not learning before earning.
Well, there are people who actually would take. And they would not learn. They would not emulate. There is nobody who can influence their thinking in terms of change, but at the same time, they are still eating however they get food to eat, clothes to wear, shelter, as the case might be. They are still existing. So what do? When they do not accept the teaching, training, guidance, and ultimately wind up on the wrong side of the law.
Mm-hmm. That happens.
Do you eradicate them? They're human beings.
I know. Because I've dealt with people.
It's a mother's child, a father's child.
Yeah.
They got brothers, sisters, as the case might be. But to get rid of this scourge, they have put a program in place, and they have labeled it the peace program. They can change the label, call it some other name, but it means the same thing. The objective of the program is to get people from one side of the law onto the other side.
Yeah, and I hope the established employers.
And we have the capacity. We have the capacity.
I hope the established employers are aware of this too. You know, because when a man show up in front and him say, well, I'm looking at a job, I would like to fill out application form, and you may mention that in the last 2 years I was on the peace program. The man start think different, you know. That possible employer start think differently once you mention for the last 2 years I'm in the peace program. You want to know where you been before the peace program and where you been on about before the peace program. These are the things, come on, in reality, on a daily basis. That's how people think. We can think hypothetically, but nobody will go up to a man and say, well, I would like to job Mr. Stanley. Where have you been for the last 2 years? Well, I was on the peace program. Prior to that, I spent some time in jail. You easily tell the man to go down where you're going. Are we ready? Are we ready as employers? Are we open enough to give these people a chance?
They do get a chance. Some take it, some squander it. Some make good of it, and you could see the results. They learn, and they continue to improve. The ultimate thing is to become self-sufficient.
To give them that chance, that opportunity.
So many people have had the opportunity.
And you treat them good. Importantly, nobody think people are come to ask you for a job and you just hash with them, rough edge with them. You got to treat people decently. You got to treat them like they have some worth in them, you know, not because they're just coming from prison or they're coming from the peace. You got to show them, and you got to teach them too.
Listen,
but most importantly, you got to recognize the human in them and respond to that, and not the fact that he possibly was a criminal before and all these type of things, you know. Because people are sensitive, you know. People are sensitive coming out of jail. One of the guys who I met, who was just coming out, because a friend of mine told me he was coming out, and I met him in a supermarket. And when I met him, I asked him his name, and the way he looked at me was like scary. He just come out a week ago, you know. He maybe think I'm a man come to hurt him, harm him. The way he look at me and he check himself when I ask him his name, and you know, they're very much on the edge because they have felt like society, they have been to jail, they have paid a price, but society still will not accept that as enough. They won't forgive them, to use another word. And so they're very much on the edge. They can easily find themselves back in prison. It's almost like an easier part for them if they don't deal with the right people who see in them, person, everyday individual who wants another chance. Yeah? And so you start dealing with them harsh. You know, people come around me and say, look, don't talk to the youth like that, man. You know, you're going to discourage the youth. Simply, you're going to discourage him. You know? And so it's about all that, Mr. Stanley. A readiness to accept, a readiness to moralize and hope to train people and talk to people, most importantly, and make them feel like you're part of it. You're part of this equation. You have that potential to reach where you want to reach. You know, all it takes is for you to free your mind and deal with a person who see you as a person who can go somewhere. Because you deal with the wrong person, believe me, you might even want to beat up the person because they deal with you with such disrespect. Such disrespect. It doesn't matter where. Because coming from jail, the same respect is applied to you. If you're coming from the pulpit, that's how I see life. That's how I see it. But that's how it's supposed to be.
Well, yeah, I was in church on Sunday, and one gentleman told me he spoke to two fellows who worked with me in another jurisdiction, and he said that they told him once they mentioned that they were to certain people that they worked with Edric Stanley, they were given a pass.
Yeah.
All right? Simply because
Yeah.
I treated people the way they should be treated, with respect. I worked you terribly hard, and I share the profit based on what the profit was. And everybody benefited. But at the same time, you cut them no slack, really. This is how we do it here. And that is what is expected of you. But they learned. So, we are reaching out to those who are on the other side of the law. And we have cooperated. We have included. And the time has come for us to continue the program, and those of you who see the program as what you have concluded, change your thinking and to understand that it is a long journey, and we are on that journey, and how we would arrive to a better place takes courage, persistency, and ultimately longevity. So, change your thinking.
Me?
Yeah.
No, I don't need to change my thinking at all, Mr. Stanley. You know, I probably want you guys to change your approach.
Well, do you have a recommendation as to what
To be accept
what approach
to
should
open
be taken?
and show some acceptance to those who approach you for employment and assistance.
I know.
You know, I know what I'm talking about.
I know
when
another-
I say when these guys come out, they're so on the edge.
I know
That you
another
really got to
another person.
bring them closer if you so desire, if you see something in them, okay? Because they will stand off still,
I know another
and they'll
person.
expect to hear anything. But if you tell them the right thing, they'll move closer and they would yield. They probably will. It doesn't work like that in every circumstance, because people are people, and some are determined to recommit crime or whatever they do, okay? But amongst those, there are many who we can put on a good path. But I find about the peace program is too much emphasis on earning before learning. And youths come on, I have 2 new man apprentices, nice youths, a female, and I always talk to them. You must learn before you earn, and then you would earn strong.
Well, in the profession you are, it is not
Two of them nice youths.
not difficult at all. I mean, I taught my son to weld, to be an arc welder.
So,
And
Edric, you're
within
not going to
15
tell me
minutes-
you're a welder too?
I am a welder.
What is this?
I'm a welder. And it is 15 minutes. You put 2 pieces of iron together and you got the machinery.
Why it was easy like that,
Huh?
people might have built a metal house.
Listen, I'm saying to you, it is easy. And you know it is. Once you got the machinery and you put those 2 pieces of metal together and you attach the rod and they got the right heat, those 2 pieces of metal are going to join. And it takes a Herculean task to get them separated. if you can ever get them separated.
I don't want you to sound that way because you're discounting the
No.
trade of welding. Welding, you know, it takes 2 years before, on an average, before you can burn a rod effectively and achieve the strength that the rod's supposed to achieve.
There are people who worked for Hess Oil and they walk with 2 pieces of thing in the pocket to prove that they are accomplished welders. All right? Because those field tanks takes a certain amount of skill to weld quarter-inch steel together perfectly because of the pressure in terms of the quantity of storage going into them. At the same time, not everybody going to get up to that level of certification, but you got the right equipment, a welding machine, and you got the right rod with the right heat, you put them together, done.
In our remaining minutes, gentlemen, tomorrow the election petition case or cases will be heard in the High Court. Any thoughts on that?
Well, we talked about it last time we were here, and I just felt that the very first sentence of the respondents, my lord, they have no standing, and therefore I ask that these petitions to be thrown out. Then the court would determine whether or not they'll give them a run, a hearing, and to expand the hearing into certain areas. But in my view, they didn't do their homework, and they have fallen short. Consequently, in my view, they're wasting the court's time. And the court and its time. Time is money. Money is time. They fail to have brought whatever charge they wanted to bring against the respondents. And as a result, I'm saying, since they didn't bring any charge, like we would hear corruption here, we would hear malfeasance here, there, as the case might be. The count didn't go the way it was supposed to have gone, but the numbers came out, and there are falsehoods in the numbers. Nothing of the kind. So the court has an obligation to both sides to listen, because the petition is already at the judge's disposal. But the judge has not heard from the respondents as yet. Well, they have to make their submittal. But at the same time, in my view, the respondents should say, my lord, this petition has no standing, and therefore it must be struck out.
Well, I think we're at the beginning, the very initial stage of a possible court case. It may not go any further, it might go further, it might go all the way. But we're at the very initial stage, and the respondents are asking for a strikeout of the petition, I think based on procedural requirements. I can't be conclusive on that. I just got to wait and see, because I don't know how the judge is going to view it. You know, I mean, procedural requirements are very important in filing a case or a petition in a big way. I don't know. And of course the facts have to be discussed after that. So I don't see the judge relying on the facts and say, well, this is quite a heavy case, and it is in the court interest to let it go through the first stage. So based on procedural requirements, I suppose the judge would decide whether or not he or she will set aside the petition. It's something we probably cannot arrive at this point in time. We have heard the Honorable Mark Brantley speaking on his program about, precedents, which is always, major in any court hearing. And so, but we still just gotta wait. We still just gotta wait and see. And I'm prepared to wait and see. The truth is, if anything happened that would improve our election process, and it means the court will have to decide so that we all can have a better election process going forward, well, so be it. If the NRP have something that they are aggrieved about, and they want to take it to court, so be it. The question is if it's going to get that far, and the relevance of the NRP concern, to the extent how much it would impact on the results. And so we just got to wait, really. I'm hoping for the island to settle down, to be quite honest. I think we've been in election mode for quite a while. And I truly would like to see Nevis settle down and go back to work. But it's like something that happens in every election, where there's somebody aggrieved and they attempt to have a court case. Some will pull out and some will go through. I think the NRP candidates, they are intelligent people, and I don't expect them to hire lawyers that are not capable. I expect that you would hire capable lawyers, and maybe specialized lawyers as well. And so we just have to wait and see what is presented, and how the judge react to this very initial, the first hurdle, whether or not they're going to strike out the petition or take it on board to have further hearings.
Do you know who the lawyers representing them are?
No, I don't.
You would have listened to the Honorable Dr. Brantley's program.
Yes, I did the last time. I think I did.
He didn't mention any names or lawyers?
Yeah, but I didn't. I wasn't led to believe that, what Mr. Brantley is saying is what he's saying. I'm still have an open mind about it all. I mean, I don't think he mentioned. He mentioned one or two lawyers that once represent the NRP in their political life, but I'm not sure that he did communicate that those are the lawyers on the case. Okay, but I know he mentioned one or two lawyers who represented NRP during their political life, but I can't say that those lawyers would be representing. Those lawyers would be the one on the case. I don't think he made that clear. I don't think he did.
Well, based on the magnitude of this case, the importance of this case, the weight of this case, they should have international jurists to argue their point.
Well,
and I'm not sure if they have employed any international legal minds
Okay. But they don't have to, International legal mind lose cases too.
Well, we understand that cases go from here
But they don't have to.
all the way to the Supreme Court. One side will win, and one side will lose.
One side will lose. One side will lose.
So, I'm hoping that they would put some heavyweight lawyers on this case.
You're hoping they're not going to do that?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, it is good legal drama when you listen to
Yes. Yes, of
heavyweight
course.
lawyers,
Yes.
and they would bring cases of reference
Yeah.
going back to 1800 this, as the case might be, a case in Britain,
President.
case law. And it is quite educating and fascinating to listen to some of the brilliant minds in the profession of law bringing
Yeah.
certain case law
Yes. Yes.
to bear on their argument.
Yes.
And in this regard, it would be quite, in my view, fascinating to sit in the well of the court and listen to brilliance in terms of law trashed out in the court. And even though we are small, we have had some legal heavyweights in our courtroom here in Nevis.
Gentlemen, I think someone mentioned that we've been having quite a bit of it lately in a couple of the elections that we've had. And I think it was Naya mentioned that some people withdraw after a while and stuff. That does it bother you that somehow, is it that we have a system that isn't producing fair results, or is it a strategy that persons are using? For instance, in the United States, you would hear people before they go into the election for that particular day, they start to make accusations and everything that, well, stuff will be rigged. And they have evidence of it. But but if they win, then everything is okay. So you think it's a strategy that's coming, or it is just that we are unable to present either systems or that can produce fair results?
We should be able to, because, well, it is practicing law. And the judge, who was a lawyer...
Yeah, but my question is, we have elections, and what we're saying is that after most of these elections, you end up in the court. So I'm asking, is it a situation where the systems that we put in place, just because they were there designed or they were there operated, and not producing fair results, or it is just strategies that persons are using because either they're sore losers or the systems are not, right and fair? What?
Well, the third one, the second one, sore losers, in my view.
So everybody who goes and challenge in court after they're lost, you label as sore loser?
Everybody who goes to court and they lost are sore losers?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking you, if that's what you're suggesting.
Well, for me, I would try and avoid going to court. But those who decide to go to court should have some semblance of their chances of losing or winning. So if they have not figured it out and they take a matter to court, hoping that they would have sympathy from the bench, well, sometimes it does come from the bench, because you never know how a judge would rule in a particular case or in any case. At the same time, usually people who have not figured it out decide to file a case which they know they can't win.
Well, I don't think the systems are perfect. The systems are not perfect. There's always something, and that's why I think the court would look at it from the point of view of whether or not the imperfection is enough to change the outcome of the election. Because if the imperfection is not enough, then nothing is happening in a sense. But the systems are not perfect. I don't think no systems are perfect.
Some years ago, even before the elections, on the day, we right here had a lot of debate and discussions about the electoral system and whether it should be reformed and who was taking names off the list, and so you and then even before the elections were held, there were challenges in the court. I remember on one particular occasion, just a day or two before the election, people were in court fighting to get names on or off the list and all these things. So when certain things ended up in court after the election, one can argue we're not surprised about it. This time around, I don't know if you had that degree of content. So when the election was over and you did the count and you sat in and commented on the count, did anybody see it coming that we were going to end up in court in a few instances?
No, I personally didn't see that at all.
And here's the other question, because I'm asking this very legitimately. In this 2 petition cases that's coming up tomorrow, what are the main issues that went wrong? I gather that there were some number of names that were objected to, and the procedure or the process was not followed. And but I don't seem to get a lot more in terms of what the issues are. I promise that I try and get a chance tomorrow to go and hear firsthand what the issues are. But anybody get it?
Well, I was told with some kind of factual evidence that there was a change of the voters list in the polling station above Hartford around 10:30 on election day. That's what I've heard, and sufficient evidence to know that was a fact. And as I said, my hands are up. I don't know if that is something that is contested in this case.
You see, I read the petition and I didn't see that, so
Okay,
I don't know. And that is what I'm saying. I must confess that I don't have a lot of information. That's why I'm searching, but I know the main one that I just mentioned, that I'm very aware of that. But so that's why I was asking.
Well, something to the effect that names were supposed to have been addressed, but the query or the complaint was made 1 year earlier, and consequently the element of time seemed to have impacted adversely on the legitimacy of the petition or the petitioner. So, if the element of time based on the length has been impacted adversely, then the court would be able to find in that as to whether or not it was a legitimate petition file. That's all I have.
None of us are sure. We can only wait and see. I'm not sure I'll be in court tomorrow, so I'll be listening out for the results of that. It can stop right there tomorrow and it can go forward, so it's an interesting time.
You know, as we're just about checking out, this thing with Edric's horse and is continuing to be a good light moment. So a lady tells me, Edric, that she thinks that you should take your horse out of the race. So I ask her why. She says, because your horse is wounded. So I said, so if you have a cricketer, a batsman, who is a very good batsman, and they got injured, and then they left, and then you have a certain number of runs to win the game, and the number 11 batsman only is left to bat, and the injured batsman. But you're confident that your injured batsman is better than the number 11 batsman, and they could get you the runs to win the match. Would you allow your injured batsman to bat again? And they told me yes. I said, but Edric must take out his injured batsman.
Well, you see,
so he continues to be...
the Honorable Cleon Simmons is predicated on my horse will come home. Had my horse not come home, we wouldn't be having Cleon Simmons being sent out into the pasture to fade and die.
So you figure that because the time is up, you will disconnect me.
Well, let me just reconnect it quickly.
That's the last word. This program repeats tomorrow at 10 o'clock following the VON News Minute. Join the Honorable Mark Brantley tomorrow evening at 8 o'clock for On the Mark. Thank you all again for joining us. This is your voice in the community, thought that gets results. You all have a wonderful evening.
Views and opinions expressed in the preceding program were solely those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Nevis Broadcasting Company Limited.